Join us.
Let's walk the talk.
This is 702.
702 indeed, and it is indeed relationship focus. On Fridays at this time between 11 and 12, Clement focuses on various aspects of relationships, this, that, on the other. Today we thought we could look at something that you've been avoiding or ignoring or deliberately overlooking. Something that many of us have, but we pretend that we don't have it. Your ego. Something that kills relationships and send relationships to cemeteries. Relationship cemeteries. It is responsible for pulling apart a beautiful couple that is meant to shine like stars. Ego can collapse a fruitful relationship. Ego can just tear two people apart and create unnecessary rivalry. So much that one goes the other way and the other heads elsewhere. Have you had this problem before? Of ego in your relationship? Where you felt that, you're trying your best, but your partner, their ego is just too much. Actually deserves a movie ticket on its own to sit with the two of you when you're going out on a date. Have you had that? Or have you reflected and looked into a mirror, because it's very easy to identify a nasty ego in other people, but have you reflected in a mirror and you thought, guys, my ego has reached very toxic proportions, so much that I don't know how to forgive, I don't know how to let go, I don't know how to communicate, I don't know how to live with the next person. Have you done that? I'm not suggesting it's easy, not at all. And I'm not suggesting that it's not justified. It could be that you went through quite a lot for you to be where you are. And this is not a judgment session at all. It's a conversation that I invite you to participate in honestly, fully, reflectively, and with an ounce of truth, I'd like to believe, because ego plays a significant role in relationships and sometimes influencing how we communicate and relationship dynamics. In moderation, ego can boost self-confidence. That's a nice side of it, because it creates ambition and assertiveness in relationships. However, when unchecked, it can be a significant roadblock in relationships, making us defensive unnecessarily so. And it could also lead to misunderstandings and conflicts that could have otherwise been avoided. So how can we recognize and address it to nurture a healthier relationship? Is ego affecting your relationship? Let us know. 011-883-0702. You can remain anonymous, or you can send us a voice note or a text message to 072-702-1702. Relationship Focus and the relationship architect, author of Uncomplicated Love, couples counselor and relationship coach, Shelley Lewin, is joining us right now to hold our hand as we navigate these often muddy waters. Shelley, thanks for your time. Welcome to 702. Great speaking to you again.
Thank you so much, Thabo. I really appreciate the opportunity whenever I can to empower your listeners with greater awareness and insight in service of building better, healthier relationships.
And not just our listeners, but us as well. Or should I say me as well? So I really take your counsel, because as much as I'm asking on behalf of the listeners, it also helps when it bounces off me and to also reflect in my own life. But before we even get into the details and the minutiae of this particular topic, what exactly does ego mean in a relationship, Shirley?
So I would like to just say ego is not inherently bad. So it's the part of us that seeks identity and validation and self-protection. But when it dominates our relationships, it can create power struggles, disconnection, and, this unnecessary drama. So think about it as like a guard dog. It's there to protect you, But if it starts attacking your partner instead of guarding the relationship, it can become destructive. So if you think about it in a healthy way, which you touched on, which is it's around confidence and assertiveness, it's about having self-respect and clear boundaries. But then when it turns to the vicious guard dog, it then turns into an unhealthy, or it shows up in an unhealthy way, and then is a roadblock, as you said, which is where it's about defensiveness, blame, the need to win or be right. You know, you start becoming very self-righteous. You withhold your affection, and then resentment sticks in. So that's the sense. I'm hoping that metaphor of the dog helps a little bit.
It does. And I mean, it just leads me straight to the next question, because I'm thinking you need to differentiate between healthy self-esteem and inflated ego. And that line can be very, very thin.
Absolutely. So, you know, healthy self-esteem is about a strong sense of self-worth, but without superiority. So then if we talk about ego, usually what we're referring to is sort of an inflated ego, which is where you overcompensate for, there's an insecurity and you overcompensate through dominance or defensiveness. So for example, a healthy self-esteem, you're confident without the arrogance. If you have an inflated ego, then you are arrogant. You feel you need to be, or you are right or better in some way. So a healthy self-esteem is open to feedback.
Yeah.
But an inflated ego doesn't want feedback. It gets defensive. It does not enjoy any kind of criticism. A healthy ego, healthy self-esteem can apologize without losing their sense of self-worth. They understand people make mistakes. It's okay. I'm sorry. I messed up. I apologize. Whereas an overinflated ego struggles to admit mistakes, because they feel that they don't make mistakes. It's that self-righteousness. There's always that justification for why I did what I did. And another one would be, sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry, I thought you were done. Apologies. Go ahead.
I was just going to say a healthy self-esteem allows for connection, whereas an overinflated ego builds walls.
Shelley, relationships are very complex, and I'm sure you know that more than many of us, because it's not just out of experience for you, I think, but also out of closely studying that subject, that very complex subject. At times, people develop an ego, and not that we're encouraging it, but an inflated ego simply because of what took place in that particular relationship. Is there a point where a time where a relationship can be so bad that one decides to withdraw into that room called inflated ego in order to protect themselves from the insecurities that you've just mentioned? And they see this as perhaps a tool to use, a shield to utilize in a battle that may be ensuing in that particular relationship.
Absolutely. So I'm going to call it an unchecked ego.
Yeah.
Which is where you don't really have the awareness that you're moving into the unhealthy state, that guard dog has now become vicious. And what that does is that it breeds power struggles. So I'll give you an example is you start scorekeeping, you start keeping track. I do this for the relationship and you do that. So you start keeping measure. Who's doing what? I do more and you do less. There's blame shifting. It's not my fault. It's you that made me this way. Instead of wanting to problem solve, you move to punishment, so when there's a problem, instead of going, we have a challenge we should face together in order for this relationship to be healthy. It's a case of, well, you did this. I'm going to punish you and I'll ignore you or I'll make you suffer. I'm going to, like my revenge, I'll ignore you until you admit or you apologize. So it becomes this battleground with where I want to prove I'm right and you're wrong. And, and that unchecked ego, it doesn't allow for this relationship, for a relationship to be a partnership. It becomes about power. So it's about power and control. And instead of being about partnership. So the idea is that the person shifts from me versus you, instead of us versus the problem.
Very interesting. 19 minutes after 11 o'clock, and we are speaking about the role that ego can play in collapsing your intimate relationship, in collapsing your romantic relationship with your spouse, your partner. Do you have it in your relationship? And I know it's something that many people are not comfortable to speak about, but here, I'm offering you anonymity in a sense that I'm saying that you can cover yourself under the guise of a different name, change your voice if you want to, but I think it's a very important discussion that we need to have. Have you found yourself being controlled by unchecked ego, this guard dog, as Shelley has said, that has now become a monster, terrorizing the entire home instead of protecting the home? And it could be that you got there without intending to, because things happen in relationships and you don't know how to get out of that space now that you are there. And that's all that you have at your disposal, because you can't find other tools. Even when things have settled down, this is just your default. You don't know what to do other than just have this unchecked ego put into work. I'd love to hear from you. Send us a text. Send us a voice note to 072 702 1702, or call us, which is what I would prefer, on 011 883 0702. 011 883 0702.
Mbappe here in Johannesburg. My belief is that ego is pride. There are some people, they never said sorry in a relationship. And you find that you are the party who always apologizes.
Yeah.
You are the one who's trying to make the mood in the house to be sort of like friendly. But the other party is not committed. Like, they are not. Those who usually use ego, they are not committed at all in a relationship, because sometimes they even go beyond humanity, like being evil, like bitter and toxic. So I just feel the other party who's not having ego is the one who wants the relationship. The ego ones, they are traumatized. I don't know, maybe their past or something. Yeah, na cancer.
But thank you so much. Really appreciate it. He's drawing a very interesting distinction there. And he's also suggesting that unchecked ego could just be pride. You, the expert herein, Shelley, guide us along. And there could be one party that has never apologized, as our caller has said right now, that there are individuals who never, ever, ever apologize in a relationship when they do things in an untoward way. And perhaps you're thinking, how many times must I apologize? Why should I always be the one reaching out? Why must I always be a matured one who's bringing everybody around the negotiating table? This person also has to do that. And you then turn the other way, and it's hard for you to come back, Shelley.
Yeah, I thought it was a really great description. I would say that the description for me is around maybe less so pride, although we all have different meanings for the word, but it's more around a self-righteousness and feeling entitled. So this person is all about me. I'm right. I'm the one, I'm, what are you doing? And they are the center of everything. Whereas the opposite of that, when your ego, which is very much what you mentioned, this guard dog that now is terrorizing the home instead of protecting it, it actually becomes destructive to the relationship, because that person is committed to me and not committed to we. It's that I would agree that the commitment is not on us and on our relationship, but on me and what I deserve and what I need. And it's very self-absorbed. It's like, and that's the best way that I can describe it. Self-absorbed, self-righteous, self-justifying, entitled.
It sounds as if it will get more toxic with time. And it sounds to me, Shelley, as if it is almost like a quicksand. One can easily find themselves getting deeper and deeper therein. Is there any way of pulling someone out when they're in that state?
So I would say that it's unfortunately, ego can prevent people from truly listening. And from understanding each other, because it blocks listening, and it's, people that have an unchecked ego, they tend to interrupt, or they're dismissive of the other person and what they think and feel. They interpret everything as a criticism instead of, constructive feedback. They're already preparing their rebuttal instead of absorbing what is being said. So we're not trying to eliminate this ego, as we mentioned. It can't be eliminated. It's not supposed to be. It's there for protection. So you're not there to kill the ego, but rather to cultivate self-awareness in the other person, okay? To help the other person to recognize that their ego is taking control and that they're being reactive rather than making conscious choices. So we want to be able to help that person to gently get them to hear us, to know that we're coming from a good place. So we might ask them to reflect and to create more pause moments. So instead of us becoming reactive to them, is to just highlight to them, can you help me understand what makes you feel this way? Can you pause for a moment? Could this be that there's another way to see this? To create moments for that person to self-reflect.
You spoke of one partner not listening, and it obviously delivers us straight to the door of communication. Clearly, this can affect communication, and listening is just a part thereof.
Yes.
And this could easily poison that chalice of communication, Shelley.
Oh, absolutely. So I like to think about conversations as bridges. So it's a bridge of connection. When two people are interacting, they can connect with each other. It's a bridge. It's a way for me to connect with you, with another person. When you have ego or inflated ego, the conversation becomes a battle and not a bridge. So you're in the dialogue. Usually the dialogue becomes a monologue. It becomes one person talking at another person, like a lecturer, like I know best. I'm talking to you. It's like condescending. I own the floor. I own the stage. I'm on my soapbox. You listen to me. So that's a monologue. That's not a dialogue.
Yeah.
And so it can become very difficult to engage in a healthy, communications.
Yeah. Shelley, then why stay? Why? Someone will ask, why stay? If things are so bad and your ego is so huge, why stay? There's the door. Why stay? And, I'm just wondering, because someone could be thinking that, listen, your ego has taken up the entire room of this relationship. One of us has to leave.
Yes. Well, if we could answer that question, because there are many people that stay in very unhealthy and very toxic relationships, and the answer that they will tell you is because I love this person, okay?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we confuse love with attachment, is that you might be attached to the person, and attachment is a biological need that we have to attach to another person. But you can love someone and choose not to be in relationship with them.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult for people to wrap their minds around that. They think that if they love them, they need to stay in the relationship and be controlled and abused and have whatever comes their way. So they themselves don't have a strong ego. So remember I mentioned it's like a healthy guard dog. So their own ego is the guard dog is not doing and it's not serving them. Their guard dog is not working. Their assertiveness is non-existent. Their boundary setting is non-existent. Their self-respect is diminished. Their self-esteem is diminished. So what happens is it's almost like you've got one guard dog that's sort of overly vicious and terrorizing and destructive, and another meek and mild one. And so they just stay. They just feel disempowered.
Goodness me. Before we go to the eyewitness news at 11:30, let me quickly just go through some of the text messages that have come through on 072 702 1702. Hi, Thabo, please keep me anonymous. Well, I've lost my relationship because this pride thing. Whenever I apologize, you get the impression that it's not acceptable. On my side, where I'm not respected, I don't stay. So when it reached that stage, I asked to be excused and said, let's agree to disagree. It was a fantastic relationship nonetheless, from Anonymous. Another text. Hi, Thabo, great show, always nice to have you. My marriage ended primarily because of this. My ex-wife was still is the kind of person that would not apologize, not take accountability. With more of it, it ended up making me not caring about her and things snowballing out of control. The real cause of it, I'd say, is low self-esteem. People who have healthy esteem don't lose much if they acknowledge their mistakes and apologize. Those who don't feel, they will lose so much. Those who don't feel, they will lose so much just by admitting their mistakes. Also from Anonymous. 29 minutes to 12.
702.
Let's walk the talk on 92.7
and 106 FM.
And I don't know if it's 23 minutes to 12 o'clock, Abel, and I was just looking at Abel here to see if we have someone on the line for us. No, we don't. Now that we don't, I think we should move on, Abel. 011-883-0702. 011-883-0702. I would love to hear from you. I was speaking earlier on to Shelley Lewin, and Shelley is the relationship architect, author of Uncomplicated Love, couples counselor, and relationship coach. And we were talking about the role that ego plays in your relationship. Has your relationship been killed by ego? Here are some of your text messages that have just come through now. Morning 702, my partner is like he's always right. He knows everything. It's always about him. I'm the one who's working. And I'm unemployed, meaning that he's the partner is the one who's working, and she's unemployed. He's the one who's buying groceries. He buys what he wants only and what he eats, and I have to live with it. He tells me he does this and that for me, and I'm not contributing anything while I'm the one who cooks, cleans, and everything else in the house. He's never sorry, as according to him. He's always right, but when I tell him I'm leaving, he cries and accuses me of not loving him. But he doesn't see what he's doing to me. Next text message says, hi Thabo, it's funny we're talking about this because my partner is really what we are discussing. And sadly, I feel like we will fall apart because of this and that. And sadly, you'd think because he's older, he'd be better than me, but it's just worse. The only thing is I'm glad I'm not married to this guy, cause no ways. And please keep me anonymous. I intend to do so. So please send those voice messages through and those text messages to 072 702 1702. Shelley, This seems like a powder keg about to explode when you're staying with someone like this.
Yeah, the message about he doesn't see what he's doing to me, I just want to say that there's two parts to this. The one is there something you can do to help your partner to see their ego? And then the second part is for us to do some self-reflection, to think about ourselves and whether our ego needs to be in check. So let's start with the about how do you help if your partner has this overinflated ego. So the first thing is to lead by example. So for you to stay calm and to model the behavior you'd like to see. So, you don't want to go into attacking them and attacking their ego and screaming at them and shouting and saying, you're so egotistical, you're this, you're that, because then you will immediately activate their defense. So it's not going to help at all. So I would say that the best you could hope for is to encourage reflection and not reaction. So instead of saying, you're not listening to me, to say, can we take a moment to hear each other first, to seek understanding, to find out if we really truly understand each other, before we move on to trying to problem solve, ask thought-provoking questions. What matters for you here? What do you really need me to understand about this situation? And how can we make this a win for both of us? So what happens is you then create a safe space for that person to be vulnerable. So that's the one thing. And then the other side, which is if you are potentially, and I do think it's a blind spot for a lot of people, that they don't realize that they are this vicious guard dog, which was also mentioned in the second text that was sent, is that sometimes we're the problem. And so keep asking yourself, am I focusing on me or am I focusing on us? Am I focusing on winning or am I focusing on the relationship and prioritizing the relationship? So to keep self-reflection going, am I reacting here to protect myself or can I potentially try to understand my partner better? So it's this constant self-reflection and self-awareness and creating stillness for yourself to pause and breathe and to choose curiosity over defensiveness.
Yeah. Is there a point where you need to consider bringing up other people to mediate, perhaps to negotiate any sort of impasse that might be existing in this relationship because of this unchecked ego?
Well, having a neutral third person to mediate and facilitate a dialogue is always going to be beneficial, because if you have someone who's neutral, they can reflect back to the person who has the overinflated ego. What it sounds like you're saying is this. So when you go to see someone who's neutral, who's this third ear, or third set of ears, it often helps for creating an awareness where there was blind spots. So that's, I mentioned earlier, it's often a blind spot. I don't think that people are inherently evil or horrible people. They're just very self-protective. And usually the self-protection comes from a previous trauma. So they're just very fearful, insecure people because they've had some serious wounds in the past. So they have this vicious guard dog because they're so wounded. And so if you create a space that allows that person to feel safe, that softens. It's like you calm that dog down. Yeah. That if you think about that, like, am I going to engage in a way that gets this dog freaking out and showing its teeth, or to gently win its trust?
This comes up more often than not. Let me go to one of the text messages, Shelley. This one says, "Morning, I have a partner who never apologizes for anything. She always feels she's right, even when wrong. I'm thinking of calling it off, especially the engagement." Apology has come up more often than not in many texts that I've already read out. Shelley, I don't know if you've noticed. And it appears as though on the other side, people don't mind the fights and the conflicts and the constant butting of heads every now and then. It is the acknowledgement of wrong that they feel ought to be present in a relationship. Is lack of apologizing one of the significant markers of what an unchecked ego does?
Absolutely. The person with an unchecked ego is going to be very defensive. They're unable to hear how they have contributed to the problem. There's no accountability. And unfortunately, relationships are partnerships. It takes two. It's two people dancing together. It's two people that are co-creating. So if you are, imagine you're in a dance with somebody and you're trying to dance with this person or to sing with this person, and you hear them singing a flat note or they stand on your toe, whatever, whether it's dancing or singing together. And you give your partner feedback and you say, you know, there was a flat note there, or you stood on my toe there. And then they go, no, I didn't. No, I didn't. It wasn't me. It was, you know, how are you going to improve your dance? How can you get better? How can you create anything positive when the person will not hear what they need to do differently? So that's why we need to take accountability, because it's just feedback. It's just education. It's just what would help us to have a better, closer, connected relationship. It's not that you are something wrong with you. So that when this high ego takes it very personally, when it's not a personal attack, it's an observation. And when you share the observation, it's to help understand the predicament so that you can overcome it. So if the person refuses to hear what the predicament is so that you can overcome it, you can't problem solve together. You can't dance together better. You can't sing together better. You can't function in a partnership better together, because there's just no accountability. So it does, as you said at the very beginning, it sends relationships to the cemetery.
And it appears as though it's not an exclusive preserve of intimate relationships only. All forms of relationships can be affected by this.
Absolutely.
Great.
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely. Professional relationships, I see it all the time in organizations with leaders, you know, that leaders that are dogmatic, and they can't take any feedback from anyone around them. So it's very, very difficult to be led by somebody who isn't open to hearing feedback.
Certainly.
Upwards.
Shelley, we'll come back to it 12 minutes to 12 o'clock.
702
Let's walk the talk on 92.7
and 106 FM.
Welcome back. Shelley, this is truly a very interesting thing, because I was just wondering, amongst siblings, there could be an unchecked ego as well. In family meetings, there could be an unchecked ego as well. It could also, like you said, find itself in the professional environment. As we come to the close of this discussion, there should be a point where you let go, where you say, indeed, perhaps it's affecting me personally, as we've read out some text messages that have come through, that you really feel that you've done your best. How do you know that this is it? After how many attempts do you say enough is enough?
So I would say that if you've given it your absolute best shot to connect with the person, to explain how it makes you feel and how you'd love to, focusing on this relationship and prioritizing the relationship, and to keep reminding them. And if you've done everything you can and it continues, I would say that you really wanted to manage and navigate the T's and C's. So manage the terms and conditions under which you are willing to engage with this person. So you manage yourself, your time, your energy, and you determine when you will see them, how long you will see them, And that's the best that you can do. Is if it's a sibling, if it's a professional relationship, you don't have to. You can walk away. If it's a friendship, you can walk away. If it's a toxic romantic partner, you can walk away. With siblings and family members or relatives, you just have to manage the T's and C's, and you determine when you will expose yourself to that person and for how long, and whether or not you want to. You have choice in the matter.
Yeah, and some people belong to religious groups, some belong to various social affiliations, and perhaps getting a little bit of counseling, will it help, relationship counseling, on not only how to deal with this person who's suffering from unchecked ego, but also in knowing best how to take yourself and cushion yourself mentally from this toxicity?
Yes, absolutely. So I do think that having a mediator or a third neutral party is always a really powerful way to engage in something like this. And as you mentioned, it's about cushioning yourself, knowing when you have capacity for it. So if you're having a good day and you're feeling strong and, things are going well, then you probably are much in a better suitable position to engage with someone like that and not get triggered and not get reactive. But if you are yourself having a bad day and you're exhausted and tired and haven't eaten, then it's best to avoid those people or that person, because they will probably really bring out the worst in you. So it's like when you have energy, you can face the vicious guard dog, but when you don't, then rather just avoid completely or disconnect and let that person know. And you can be honest about it, about why you're choosing to disconnect.
Definitely. Shelley, I loved talking to you. How do people reach you outside 702, of course? How do people get in touch with you and get to know more about your books and your work?
Oh, thank you. So my business is The Relationship Architect Coaching and Education. So TRA coaching.com. You can find me. And I have a retreat coming up in May, a relationship renewal and wellness retreat. It's in Simonstown in Cape Town. It's 3.5 days where I will guide you and your partner through a powerful, immersive journey of healing, growth, and deeper connection. If you go onto my website, you'll find out more about it. And it's something like that, a relationship renewal retreat is the perfect opportunity to create the space and the vulnerability to understand each other better and to have these facilitated conversations and reflective experiences that can perhaps help the person who has this overinflated ego to realize what's happening. So that's why I do offer these retreats.
Shelley, love talking to you. All the best. I look forward to chatting to you again in the near future. And thanks for indulging us with your
Thabo.
expertise. All the best to you.
Absolutely. It's an absolute pleasure. Take care.
Great. Shelley Lewin, the relationship architect, author of Uncomplicated Love, couples counselor, and relationship coach.